You're live on YouTube now, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Right, councillors, my electronic devices tell me it's at 7 o'clock, so we'll make a start. Can I welcome you all to this meeting of the Governance Scrutiny Group, and also our excellent team of officers, and as well as all of us, I'm especially pleased to give a warm welcome to Charlotte Thomas and Greg Rubins of our internal auditors BDO, who will be presenting to us. May I also welcome members of the public who are viewing us on YouTube. And if we have any technical difficulties, please forgive us as we try to get through the various issues from time to time with technology. Okay, we're moving on to item number 1 on the agenda. Apologies for absence. I don't think there are any. No.
Sorry, Chairman. No, we have no apologies this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item 2. Does anyone have any declarations of interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary? I take that silence as a no. And of course, if you feel that you remember something later on, then obviously please grab my attention then. Moving on to item 3, to agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of July 2020, pages 1 to 8 in your agenda papers. Is there anybody who has any issues with those minutes? We've had an opportunity to peruse them over the last few days. No? Can I take it as read then that we approve those minutes? Thank you. Moving on to item 4, internal audit progress report, 5-month update, pages 9 to 22. And may I hand over to our presenters from BDO, Charlotte Thomas and Greg Rubins. Charlotte.
I think I'm going to kick off if that's okay.
So, yes, absolutely. You're very welcome.
Thank you. I'm Greg Rubins. I'm a partner from BDO. So I lead our service to you. I'm your head of internal audit. So it's good to meet you all remotely, and I look forward to working with you all. Just in terms of the rest of the team, those of you who were there when we presented our internal audit plan would have seen Gurpreet Dulay, who's the audit manager. So he's not on the call today, but you'll be seeing him as well in future. And Charlotte Thomas, who's with me, is our audit senior and actually does the bulk of the work. So Charlotte will be co-presenting with me. I'm just going to take you through page 15 of your papers, which is the summary of our progress report. So just to let you know where we are in terms of progress so far. So we are presenting today our report on budget management, and Charlotte will talk to that. At the last meeting, we presented the annual fraud report. So we've produced 2 reports so far. That's 20% of the plan, but obviously we would normally have hoped to be slightly ahead of that at this stage. COVID has obviously been the main reason for that. That's delayed us starting, it's got pros and cons, COVID, in terms of the way that we do the plan. It's obviously things are taking longer, so it's quite difficult to get information when you're not actually out on site. You know, when you're perhaps standing over someone and getting the right report that you want, when you perhaps can go into corridors and bump into people, you know, all of those are advantages when you're out on site. We don't have that. On the other hand, remote working is good for the environment. There's less travel, and we're able to use a much wider range of team. So obviously, you know, I can use people. I've got teams in Bristol, London, Southampton. I can use those auditors to help supplement the plan if they're the best people to do the work. So that actually can be helpful in making sure we will complete the plan. So you'll see the table that says we've done 20%. There's 50% of the work where we've done the terms of reference and we've either got field work underway or we haven't started the field work yet, and another 30% where we haven't done any terms of reference. So the 30% is fairly you know, typical for this time of year. It's the 50% where normally we would hope to have more reports done, but I'm confident we can finish by the end of the year. We've got the resources to do it. Officers have been very cooperative. So, you know, we will catch up and I'm happy that we'll be able to do that. That's all I was going to say just by introduction, and then I'll pass on to Charlotte to take you through the rest of the report.
Thank you. Over to you, Charlotte.
Okay, thank you. I'll just share my screen, shall I? That's easy, easier. Let me just find, oh gosh. Oh. Apologies. Yeah, so the main report that we're bringing you today that has actually been fully completed is the budget management audit, which you can see we've given a substantial assurance opinion on. That's for both the control design and the operational effectiveness of those controls. And substantial is the highest opinion that we do award, so that was really fantastic. Obviously, the review looked at the budget management arrangements across the council from a couple of different angles. So we surveyed budget holders, we sat in on budget management meetings between the budget holders and the senior, the finance business partners. We looked at reporting, we looked at virements, we looked at escalations, etc. There's lots of good practice to be noted in the report, and only 2 low findings. And the low findings related to just the creation of an internal procedures document and also formal action monitoring. But overall, we were looking to just make sure that there was enough challenge and detail within the process, and we were really satisfied with what we saw. So hence the substantial assurance. I don't know if you've got any questions on that report.
Do you want me to ask for questions?
Yes, if you like.
Or on any of the papers, we're very happy to take any questions on the internal.
Or would it be better if we wait till the end?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no worries.
Wait till the end.
Okay. All right then. So moving on just to the next page on looking ahead, which Greg has touched upon. Obviously, we've got the list of reviews for this year's plan in the table, and you can see the 2 dark greens are the ones that have been completely finished. The pale greens are currently in process, although I should note the main financial systems hasn't started yet because the auditor did fall ill, unfortunately. But we are still aiming to get that to the November meeting, and the new start date has been agreed with Sarah. The yellows are where the terms of reference have been agreed and the start date has been agreed, and licensing is going to be starting next week. And then the 4 oranges are where we haven't fully agreed the terms of reference with management, but we have drafted majority of these. And so it's just a case of having those conversations and getting it locked in, which we're confident will happen pretty soon. So overall, although we're only bringing you the budget management today, by November, we were hoping to have 3 or 4 more reports to you, and then the bulk of the rest of them in February. So well ahead of the end of the year, obviously subject to, issues outside of our control not arising, but we're reasonably confident we'll be able to get all of this done in the time. So that's the plan. And then moving on to the other matters, there's just a couple of things to pick up here. One is the changes to the internal audit plan, which have been agreed with management. The country parks income review is being replaced with forward risk assessment, and markets is being replaced with a business grants review in light of the extensive emergency work undertaken around business grants because of COVID. But obviously we wanted to draw your attention to this as well, and if you have any issues or questions, do let us know later on. Follow-up, as you're used to, we'll be doing the same as RSM. We'll be sending you reports throughout the year on follow-up. We've actually carried out the bulk of the legacy recommendation follow-up from RSM, and that will be reported now in November. And our own follow-up process for any recommendations that have been raised in our reports will also be added to that. We've just got a paragraph here about quality assurance, just to give you assurance that we're still compliant with the public sector internal audit standards framework. We've got a quality assurance team. All our reports are subject to review by senior management and partners. And obviously we're always wanting to improve, so we're open to client feedback and take that on board as we go along. And finally, the satisfaction surveys. We are sending these out after every review that we do, and the results of those will be reported in this report going forward. Unfortunately, the budget management one we received after the papers deadline for this, but it was a positive response. We got 4 out of 5 in all areas, so we're really pleased with that. Obviously, any other further comments we're happy to take on board and learn from. And hopefully this just gives you a bit of satisfaction that we're being transparent and showing you how we're committed to delivering good quality service to you. And then the next page just reiterates the reports we've completed to date. And the final page is just an appendix which gives you the opinion significance. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. And it was a riveting read over the weekend for me. I found it very readable. I hope others did. So thank you for a very full and comprehensive report. Did you have your hand up there, Leanne? No, sorry. Okay. Are there any questions? Devinder, yeah, Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Charlotte and Greg, for that introduction and overview. My question isn't necessarily on the content, actually. It's more around the logistics and the timeline and the list of areas to be covered listed on page 17. The question is just regarding, and thank you for your reassurances that despite the fact that we're only 20% into the plan, that you do feel confident we will get through it. But I suppose just as a backup or a plan B, if there are some issues and we can't do that, is there a strategy to reprioritise these areas? That's one question. And the second question is, in terms of that list of 10 areas, what actually has determined those? I'm sure you've discussed with the internal team and officers, but is there actually something behind the science of how that list was generated? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, do you want me to answer that?
Please do. Yep.
So just in terms of prioritisation, I mean, at the moment we are working on the basis that all of the audits will be completed on time. If there are issues, I mean, the most obvious issue obviously would be, a serious outbreak, second or third outbreak of COVID, however you want to classify it, which might make it difficult to complete the plan. We would sit down with officers to prioritise the time remaining, depending on how much time we had and how we could complete the plan, and we would bring that back to this committee to get your approval on that. So there will be, that process will be in place if we need it, but hopefully we're hopeful that we won't. Just in terms of the plan itself, I mean, that was presented a few meetings ago. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a scientific basis, but there is a basis for the plan, which is really your risk assessment and your own risks as to what are the key risks facing the council, as well as a number of audits that we'll need to do, like key financial systems because they're expected of internal audit, and your external auditor will also be expecting us to do those sort of audits. So it's a combination of risks, which is based on your own risk register and our discussions with officers as to what the key risks are, as well as I say, a number of areas that we need to do as internal audit. And that's so effectively there has been a prioritisation process already to form that audit plan.
Thank you. Are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Greg, for that. That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. Anyone with further questions or comments? No, thank you. I think that is an indication to me that you've given us an excellent report and an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. Councillors, the recommendation is that the Governance Scrutiny Group notes the progress made so far against the internal audit programme. So I am assuming that you are happy to note that. Thank you all. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Greg. And hopefully we'll see you again in the future. Of course, you're very welcome to stay for the other items.
Well, I will stay, but we'll be off camera. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 5, constitution review. Unfortunately, we don't have our monitoring officer with us this evening, who's not able to be with us. However, I'm very pleased to ask Charlotte Cavan-Attak to lead us on this item. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody. I just want to briefly introduce the Monitoring Officer report. I'm going to hope that there aren't too many questions here, otherwise I might end up going back to her for some answers. But I understand, having read the minutes from the last meeting where you discussed the Constitution in more detail, that one of the actions arising from that discussion was that Monitoring Officer invited you to submit any proposals or ideas you had for areas of concern or areas to review over the next 12 months. I can say that she has received one suggestion which she has dealt with. It wasn't so much a suggestion, rather a misunderstanding, something that under discussion was then withdrawn once the member understood more. Therefore, this report is really just to tie up a loose end. Unless you have anything that you want to add at this stage, it will just be moving the recommendation, which is that the Constitution remains as it is until its next scheduled review period.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. So it's been recommended that we agree that the Constitution remain as currently drafted. I'm happy to propose that. Do you need a proposer and seconder, Charlotte?
No.
You don't, just noted. Okay, thank you. We're all happy to note that. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, Risk Management Strategy 2020 to 2023, pages 27 to 44, report of the Executive Manager, Finance and Corporate Services has been in our agenda pack. Unfortunately, Mr. Linfield is not able to be with us this evening, so I'll be handing over to Charlotte Cavan-Attak again. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chairman. Bit of a stand-in act today, I'm afraid. This is the updated risk management strategy following the Zurich health check, which was undertaken at the end of last year. That health check made 4 recommendations, all of which have either been taken place or are reflected in the updated strategy. I know that some of the councillors were able to attend the training that Zurich provided at the beginning of this month, and I hope that that was helpful. I would particularly like to draw members' attention to risk appetite, which was one of the recommendations coming out of the health check. That's section 2.6 in the revised strategy. This is very much about the amount of risk that the council is willing to seek or accept in order to meet its aims. I would also like to draw members' attention to section 2.7, which is opportunity risk. Again, one of the recommendations from the health check report. So this is about what is to be gained from taking a risk. A good example of this is actually the crematorium project that we are embarking on at the moment, whereby there are said to be significant opportunity gains to be made by taking the risk in developing the crematorium. Unfortunately, risk has over the years tends to have a look at the negative side of things. So it's all about what we can lose if we do something, what something is going to go wrong. So this section of the new strategy really looks at opportunity risk, and officers have been working on a revised matrix, which you will see next time the risk report comes through to you for consideration, that has two sides to it. The risk that you're expecting to see, that you've been seeing for the last few years, but also the opportunities involved in that as well. Just finally, in order to meet the recommendations from the health check, I would also like to bring members' attention to section 2.8, which looks at project risks. I would like to reassure members of the group that we have actually done some internal work on our project management protocols and guidance, and produced a template so that those project risks are strengthened and are taken more into account. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have on this updated strategy. And just so that you are aware that the next update on the risks that you would be expecting to see will be coming to you just after Christmas at your February meeting. And this is the strategy that we'll be using then moving forward.
Thank you, Charlotte. It was extremely interesting to attend the training session about risk management presented by a gentleman from presumably our insurers, Zurich Municipal, yes. Who I believe had extensive experience of local authority in the past, local authorities, should I say. So we seem to be in good hands, and it was very interesting to see the more sophisticated shift to various types of risk, including opportunity risk. Are there any questions, comments from councillors? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just ask just about the report? The only thing I would say, Charlotte, is, you know, when they've got the kind of the title, it'd be nice to know which is the actual officer who's in charge of those, who has that title. Because I kind of went to search for who the actual officers were, because some of them I don't know who holds the position, really. So I wondered if that was something that we could, yeah, like there's certain positions, I don't know who is our performance officer, for example, and things like that. So I wondered if that could be made a bit more clear.
Thank you, we'll take that on board.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries or comments? Leanne.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just say on that point, Councillor Walker, that we tend not to include officers' names because officers change, and then we'd have to keep updating the report, but we can send you a list of the names to go with it as a separate note so that you know who they are, but we tend to keep officers' names out of strategies and reports so that because of that change in personnel. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. My observation and question is really centred around the table on page 41, the consequence and impact assessment following the Zurich report. It actually relates to a point I've raised in previous meetings, Chair, specifically around quantification of risks. Now, it's interesting to note that we've now got references to insignificant, you know, being less than 10,000, minor 10 to 50,000 and so on, going up the scale. What I've raised in the past is on the risk register, which we review as part of this committee on a regular basis. You know, I'm very pleased to see this in terms of a strategic approach in terms of quantifying at a generic, you know, level. But I'd be still very keen, and maybe it needs to be captured within this policy strategy, if we're able to quantify on the risk register an actual quantification of each risk, so that we can, as a committee, look at the risk being presented to us, the mitigation strategy, and the likely impact that may have. I'm not going to repeat what I've said before, but it is a point I've raised in previous meetings, and I do think this is very helpful. But if we're able to look at, on an individual risk basis, the financial elements of that impact and what consequential mitigation strategy we may adopt, I think that will be very useful for us and give more meaning to looking at a risk strategy. I still think this is fairly high level, which is great. It's good to see, but I do feel we haven't got the table here. But when we have 50 risks being presented to us, some of them at the higher end of the alert mechanism, be it red or amber or whatever, having that financial association would, I think, for me anyway, help to make a better judgment on where we stand with those. So whether that can be looked at again, Leanne, I don't know. I know I have spoken to Peter about it before, and we have discussed it at this committee before, but I'd be still keen to see that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Leanne.
Thank you, Councillor Verdi. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, that is something we're intending to include in the when we're reporting next time. So I think, Charlotte, the report is due at the next meeting in January. Is that right? The next risk report?
February, Leanne.
February. And any that are in the red category, we will put some more detail about what those risks are specifically and how we're going about mitigating them. So we will add that detail into the next report that comes.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Chair.
Cheers. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No. The recommendation is that the Governance Scrutiny Group considers the content of the strategy, including any recommendations and suggestions about the strategy. And I don't think that is calling for a vote. So I suppose we'll note that. Thank you very much. I thought it was a very interesting report. Thank you for taking on board things that have been said in the past as well, because I think it's a document that is always evolving in my time on this this scrutiny group. Okay, with your permission then, councillors, if we can move on to the next item, item 7, a very relevant item to the current time, going concern assessment linked to COVID-19, pages 45 to 50 of your agenda, the report of the Executive Manager, Finance and Corporate Services, and I believe Sarah Whitaker will be leading on this one. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, as you just mentioned, this is the report of the Section 151 officer, and it's on the council's ability to continue to discharge its duties for the foreseeable future. So this report, well, going concern is not normally an issue for local government, but due to COVID, external audit have asked for additional assurance. And it's not just us, it's all councils that they've asked to provide this additional report on going concern basis. So the assessment covers 4 main areas of focus. So paragraph 4.2 lists those 4 areas. So the financial position at paragraphs 4.3 to 4.6 details our current position. So basically the 2019-20 year end. And from paragraphs 4.7 is the balance sheet position, again for the end of the year. The projected position, as reported to council last Thursday, is at paragraphs 4.8 to 4.10. I won't go over those points again because like I say, they were covered last Thursday. Just to mention that overall, the projected position from that report can be maintained within current resources. It also covers governance arrangements in paragraph 4.11 to 4.12, which basically looks at the posts that we've got within the council. And paragraphs 4.13 to 15 covers the external regulatory and control environment. So this covers things like our external audit and the best practice that we follow. It summarises that the government would intervene in cases if we wouldn't be allowed to fail, essentially. So the overall conclusion from this report and from the Section 151 officer is that the council does remain a going concern. So that's very positive. And that's all for this report.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sarah. See, my big concern is the leisure kind of side and how we're supporting the leisure facilities at the arena in particular. What happens if they no longer become a going concern, basically? Do we have how are we kind of preparing ourselves for the fact that the leisure facility isn't going to be open for the foreseeable future? And is our position to continue to kind of fund that? Or, I mean, where do we stand with that particular issue, basically? Thank you.
Leanne?
Thank you, Councillor Walker. We are working very closely with our leisure provider, and there's a lot of work going on in the background to understand their current situation on a week by week basis, and we are planning for other eventualities. So we are looking at planning for alternatives. It's probably not the right place to be discussing that in detail. But rest assured that we're working closely, like I said, working closely with them, and we're looking at other ways that we could, service the leisure centres if we had to.
You want to come back?
Yes, thank you. When will we get a chance to kind of view that and kind of how they're spending their money in those kind of issues?
I think that would be more appropriate when we're a bit further down the line. At the moment, we're still in a very, very live situation, and it's something that could come to scrutiny once the current situation has passed and we're on sure ground as to what the next phase is going to bring. But it is something that we can put on a future scrutiny report at the appropriate time.
So that would kind of suggest that we're carrying on is that kind of suggesting that we carry on as we are now, for the foreseeable future? Is that kind of the strategy?
Yep, we are carrying on as we are at the moment. We're in contract with the leisure providers, and we're continuing with the contract at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Verdi.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, Leanne. Paragraph 4.10 refers to a government grant, which may help a government grant in relation to lost income. I was just wondering what magnitude that might be in terms of mitigating some of the losses that we're suffering this year.
Do you want me to take that, Leanne?
Or Sarah, sorry, I should have said. I didn't mean to have you on, Leanne, but yeah. Yeah,
it was a fairly recently announced measure that the government have taken. It basically allows some absorption of initial losses, and then they will reimburse up to 75% of those remaining losses on certain types of eligible income. So there is some calculation work to be done, and once we know what that figure is, it will be claimed during the year back from the government.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? No. Right, thank you. I think the recommendation, go back to it, asks us to note the positive outcome of the assessment made of Rushcliffe Borough Council's status as a going concern for the purpose of the statements of account. And thank you very much for drawing this up, Sarah, and pass our thanks on to Peter. It's really useful to look at these issues before we face issues down the track, which we may be anticipating over the coming year or so. Who knows? Thank you. Okay, without further ado, if I may, if we move on to item 8, the work programme, pages 51 to 52, report of the Executive Manager, Finance and Corporate Services. Is it Charlotte Caven-Attack on this? Oh, sorry, Leanne, my apologies. If you could take us through that.
Thank you, Chairman. This is just a standing item to confirm and agree the programme going forward. There are 2 dates in the diary, 24th of November and the 4th of February. There's just one change to the programme written in the report there, and that's the annual audit letter will be moved from November to the February meeting due to delays in getting that completed. And that's all, unless anybody's got any comments.
Now, I understand from Peter that he was expecting us to have a fairly busy agenda with what we've already got planned for November. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, any questions or comments from anyone? No, I'm not getting a sense of that, and I think we might be going for a record finish this time. I was expecting to be around a bit longer. Are we happy to note that? Thank you. And with that, councillors, I think that completes the meeting for this evening. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Night.